All right, I guess we'll just pick up here, and whoever wants to watch will just pick it up as they go with us. Yeah, and it's like there's a part of me that goes, well, okay, you know, we go back to the mystery schools, right? We go back to, because we're talking about schools and schooling, and really the schooling is all about remembering. And we've done it so differently because most of the schools we've done here have all been about forcing something down somebody's throat and forcing them to accept it as a remembrance, right?
In a particular way.
In a particular way. So, you know, with the children and younger generation that are coming in at this, you know, next level of foundation, right, of awareness, they have this constant conflict going on already because of what they know that, you know, stays up at the surface more than in the past, or what they remember, and what they're being told to repress, right? So and it's everywhere. So it's our school system, it's our public school system, right? But it's also like this, all this other stuff that's out there. We have so many things that are just, people just throw them, like we just throw them out there.
Well, and you know, I think about this a lot, especially when I'm on social media, is a lie told 20 times is the truth.
Right. And I've seen that a lot lately. It keeps on coming up.
And it's just like, that's all it takes to create beliefs.
Well, it's sort of like not too long ago, there was somebody in Kung Fu who's very scientifically minded. And he's like, I don't know, he's in his mid-20s though. Very idealistic. But he comes from, I want to say Singapore, right? Originally. Well, he grew up there, but he's lived here for a while. And he's actually going back there. So one day, I don't know how it even came up, like a group of us were on, it was in between classes on a Saturday, and we were just sort of chit-chatting, and something came up about water quality and everything. And I said, yeah, that's the one thing we sort of dread about when we have to, you know, when we do have to move, when the DOT puts the highway through our house, you know, is
right.
We have this awesome, beautiful 7.0 pH, you know, perfect well water that we've had for years, and, you know, not fluoridated, not chlorinated. And we're going to have to just put all kinds of house filtration on our water wherever we are, unless we find someplace else that, you know, has similar stuff. And then somebody else in the group actually started down like, yeah, you know, that's the thing that sucks with the you know, not just the chlorination, but the fluoridation. And then this guy was like, well, what's the matter with that? And, you know, in his perspective, of course, was true to him, because why? Right. He grew up in a country where the water sucked.
Yeah, you couldn't drink the tap water.
So he's like, you know, the water in the United States is phenomenal compared to most of the rest of the world, is what he said. And I said, I understand what you're saying. He's like, yeah, you don't have to drink water and worry about getting some kind of, in general, you don't have to worry about getting some kind of, you know, fatal intestinal disease just by, you know, by drinking.
Right.
I said, no, I understand.
But we also have struggles here that they don't have in those countries, because not everybody's on birth control, not everybody's on antidepressant, not, you know, so there are some intrinsic factors here that aren't there.
Right. And so we somehow we got onto the conversation around fluoride. Because then he said something about, well, you know, prevents you from getting cavities. And I said, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, it does. I'm like, yeah, no, it doesn't. And he said, well, you know, and he started saying, well, what, and I said, no, it's actually poison. And they're showing it's like having long-term negative effects on people and on whatever. And he's like, well, do you have any studies that you cite on this? And I said, there are plenty of studies out there that you can cite. I said, but I don't remember. I said, here's what I tell people. Go and research it yourself. Go and Google it.
Right.
There are legitimate organizations and educational institutions that have done research, and it shows that it, at the very least, has no effect at all. At the very least.
Right.
Most of them it's detrimental. So he got really perturbed by that, right? Because and I said, yeah, but that's, and he was like, but so he's going, well, every dentist, like they want to,
fucked up.
Yeah, no, but he was like, he wouldn't believe it. And he's like trying to get us to validate, that information. He's like, because every dentist will say that fluoride is good for you and every blah, blah, blah. And I said, but where do they get their information from?
Right.
I said,
National Association.
The ADA,
right.
which has benefit to pushing the fluoride and all that kind of stuff. Where it started. I said, where it started, I think it was the 40s or so. I was like, if you need to go back and do that research, I would just do it. I said, and then make up your own decision. I said, I always tell people, don't take my word for it. Go and do your own research. But don't take the dentist's word for it either, because just because they say it doesn't mean that it's true.
Right. Right.
But that goes back to everything. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean that it's true.
Right.
And it seems that more and more people are just throwing shit out there and seeing what sticks to the wall right now.
Right.
And I'm not just talking about it. I mean, I see it in the spiritual world. I see it in the political world. I see it in our educational system. And that is what is really, I think, causing a lot of internal friction with the kids and the young adults. Right? So somehow that's all connected. Because, like I was saying before we started recording, it goes back to so you got that, and you got teachers walking out because they're not even giving public funding to the schools so that they can even adequately teach. And then they're editing the history books now, right? And all this kind of stuff. And it's like, wow, and yet we mock in our literature, we mock that, we look at things like Fahrenheit 451 and all that kind of stuff, and we think that's fictional. And it's like, well, really, is it,
Right.
But it's also the same thing with remembrance of all this stuff. And every single, I see so many things that are hypocritical and or just accepted at face value without anybody looking inside at their own guidance.
Right.
And like I was saying, before we started recording, it's so that a perfect example was I looked up this weekend and there's all this stuff about this Lionsgate thing that's coming up on, August 8th and August 8th and 8/8/8/8. And they do that every year. And it's the sign of Leo and all that kind of stuff. And how somebody thought it was a great idea to connect it in and say, oh, well, the ancient Egyptians, they thought this was a really important day. And da-da-da, and I'm going, but does anybody ever connect the dots to say the ancient Egyptians didn't even have the same calendar? Nor did they follow the astrology system the way we follow it. So why would it be of any significance? And if they did, it would have nothing to do with the date or whatever. It would be connected to something else energetically, right? And it's not that, and it's the same thing of all these eclipses and all of these retrogrades, and it's not that, and it's like what I posted last week, it's not that they're useless, it's that they're just messages back to us on what to look at, and it's all relative to the individual and where they are. It has nothing to do as well as the collective, but it really has to do with our individuality as well. Right. So blanket statements and just giving away your power to stuff, right? Saying, oh, it must be the eclipse, oh, it must be the retrograde, oh, it must be the Lionsgate, oh, it must be this or whatever. It's well, we're constantly shifting right now, right? And it was we were talking on the phone Friday night for the share. It was a really powerful week for me last week. Powerful.
Yeah.
Huge shifts. I mean, and so many people are oh, it was terrible. It was so distressing. It threw me for a loop. I'm thinking, I had a freaking awesome kick-ass week last week, and it was powerful, and it was almost like everything got kicked into gear for me last week energetically and cleared out. So it's all on where the individual is, and the messages back are, okay, so this space is being held. We're creating this space and collectively, energetically to reflect this back, but I can't tell you what that's going to do for you, right? That's the teaching part.
Right.
So how do we change it all? Because really, I was thinking about, and I don't know how this ties into the dream and that in between place. is it that in the dream that I was being told that people weren't ready for it yet?
Well, I definitely think that's where we are, because otherwise, why would there be a disparity between stories?
Or is this, I mean, it's all perfect, right? So is it that we're going to run the course of it to get to such an extreme that it's going to have to collapse on itself? Because that's how we think we have to do it here.
Right.
Right.
Well, but that's the choice we made, like with the government.
Right. What government?
No, but it's
yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. It's like, what government? It's sort of imploded on itself right now. It's all.
I know, but at the same time, it's been. Has it already collapsed?
I feel like it really has. It's just that we're pretending it hasn't, because that's uncomfortable change for us, right? I mean, and it's going back to the educational thing. Our educational system has completely collapsed on it and imploded on itself.
Right.
It hasn't updated for decades. It doesn't address where we are energetically. It doesn't incorporate, even when I was a kid, like back when I was a kid, I remember, like somewhere along the line that hearing, and I know because I have friends that I graduated high school with that went on to become teachers, and in the northern states they are paid a whole lot better than in the southern states still, because people actually pay taxes for education and stuff in their real estate things or whatever.
Right.
But part of a good educator, and I remember growing up with this understanding, and the people that I know who became teachers that I grew up with were the same thing, as part of being an educator is helping others to think for themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really being a true educator. And that's what I feel like, even what we do at Trinity or whatever, is Trinity is all about accessing your own guidance, right? And part of the biggest challenge that people seem to have is trusting that they have all the answers over everything outside of them. So I don't know how it connects to that dream though, but it feels like it's connected. Because it's almost like, is it because the energies that are coming out for those who are allowing it are really so huge, they're just
feel uncontrollable.
But they have to be managed and assimilated, that it's important for them to be allowed unleashed or
unfettered.
Yeah. And
I just think that there's such a bigness coming that you can't even anticipate it. It's just, you just have to allow it. And that requires trust. And the trust is about trusting yourself, because that's where it's coming from. And that's what people can't get past. Or not get past, but they can't allow. And it's so much easier because it's already here. If you just allow it, then it doesn't have to be traumatic.
So maybe what we focus on today, because it's relevant across all kinds of education, right? Maybe it's just holding the space to allow for it to. Well, okay, so it comes back to what we were talking about, I don't know, sometime in the recent past, like in the past month or two, right? Which was the release the Kraken. Maybe that's what that meant when it came up. Is let it all just come up. And maybe if we held the space
to
allow it, right? In a place of support and love. Because in that dream, you and Kathy were holding that space for me, as that was
right.
And we were figuring it out together, the three of us, like how to manage it. And But of course there were some like, some wild shots every once in a while that just sort of got loose,
Well, and that would follow reason that it's a progression instead of just a flipping a switch, because there are those that have to, there are those aspects of ourselves that have to be there in a support role, a way shower, or, it's a different version of the lighthouse.
Well, and it's because it's to see it. Oh yeah. I can see that, because it's sort of like to be able to even hold that space is to be in a place of acceptance and no fear. Right. And to say, yeah, no, this is perfect. And it's time to unleash the Kraken. And we know that it's a part of love and a part of the whole. And it's really important and pertinent in terms of our shifting. And it's for us to do without fear, to do it, in a place of love and acceptance, and holding that space to allow it to come in and assimilate in the embodiments that we have here now, right? Of the way that it's, because that's the only way we're going to change the physicality anyway. Yeah, that feels right. And we talk about trusting and accepting. And yeah, it's one of the last things so many do.
Oh, right. Well, it's because it's so interdependent or independent.
There's the yawn.
And if you don't have that trust in yourself, how can you have it to trust in all this?
Yep. And what's interesting is thinking about that dream. I've had this weird random cough that's come up for
I have too.
The past like 2 weeks or so, and it's been more prominent in the past week, but I have no sickness. Like there's no cold, there's no fever, there's no pain or discomfort or any other symptom.
I've even had people comment like, what is that? And it's like, I don't know.
I know. And it was funny because my mother yesterday was talking about, blah, 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 and about some place she saw like the Ricola cough drops. I'm like, yeah, I don't need cough drops though. It's not. And so I feel like that's the whole, like, I'm like, so obviously there's something we're having a challenging time allowing to vocalize or come to the surface or even just come up, right? To express, not even vocalize. I mean, expression can be in so many different ways, which is exactly what that dream was about.
Right. Which, probably points to my hives.
Right. Because the hives.
Energetic expression.
Yep. So, yeah, it feels the important thing is for us to, like, it sounds so, I want to say lame. It sounds so tame to say, to be able to hold the space. No judgment.
That's right.
To hold the space sounds so tame. See, there's a cough again.
But it's in such a whole different way.
And it's so much more powerful, right?
Right.
Because it's holding this space of, it's just got to come up. Let's just let it come up. Let it embody, let it materialize, let it be realized here.
Wow. That feels like such a relief to me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure not everybody would have that reaction, but to me, it's just like, oh, thank God.
Right. Because then if we come at it from a place of, I accept this and hold space for it in love, no matter what it has to come up, like how it looks when it comes up, like, and it can look easy and fun, right? But it's still going to be, it's almost like pulling the plug out of a lot of different things that we've held ourselves back with because we believe that it wasn't time yet, right? We believe that the earth couldn't handle it, right? Just like in the dream, like I was removed from the situation by the men in black because they didn't think that people were ready. And I was like, but it was getting under control pretty quickly. It wasn't like it was, yeah, people got scared a little bit, but it was, they got over it. Wow. So it's this, yeah, I feel that feels really good. It's just being able, and that really is for us to be in that place of, it was like I think I posted something over the weekend that just struck that so well. It was like, what if we put all our energy to living our dreams instead of living our fears?
Right. I saw that. I
thought that's really what a majority of so many are doing, is living their fears, because that's what the ego in the 3D. And it's like, well, what if we put our energy to allowing the space of all that possibility, like in this place of, of a playground where it's fun and enjoyable instead of scary because we don't know what's going to come up.
Well, and it's almost like I don't even want to say it's a re-education, but it's like a retraining, because we don't even think about living our fears. We just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause look at how, all right, here's like one thing. And I noticed this just amongst people, and no matter how spiritual, conscious, or whatever, how many times you've been in a group of people and a wasp flies up and somebody panics, or multiple people panic and start getting up and running away, a wasp, right? And it's like, when I sit there all the time and I don't react to it, and it typically just, hangs out or flies away and moves on. And yeah, okay, I've been stung in the past by a wasp, so I know what it feels like. Right. But it doesn't cause me to, and like that's a living by fear, right? A gut reaction for somebody is they're going to get up and they're going to swat, or bees or anything like that. They just get up and they swat at it and they, run away from it and cause more energy of creating it, the fear, right? Because then it agitates the wasp or whatever, the bee, and then it starts following you. It just becomes like this like self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's like a little tiny example, but if you're guided to get up and move, then get up and move. Most of the time, that like 99% of the time, it's a fear thing, right? And that's just a tiny thing, like one little tiny thing. But how many things do we do every day because we're in avoidance or from a place of fear? I'm not doing this because of this, because I'm afraid of this. I'm avoiding this because this could happen,
Right. Which just creates it.
Yeah. So when we shift to that place of, and here's the thing, of course, if we're living in a place of fear and these for lack of a better word, powers come back to us in reality that we have allowed to lay dormant for so long, like all through, like that's what we're calling all these awakenings and stuff, right? But those are just baby steps. Like we're coming into big, huge jumps, right. My understanding. So it's like, okay, everybody thinks that their grand awakening was like a big jump. Well, wait till you see what's coming next, kind of thing. And right. It's just been that preparation of being able to hold that space and trust, I got this, even if it looks a little clunky in the beginning or, whatever. But if we are in the practice of self-love and trust and inner guidance, then we can hold that space not only for ourselves but with each other. And that is, like you said, a whole new definition of the lighthouse.
Right.
And when we can do that, then we can allow that stuff to just come up full force in that place of love and unity and wholeness and a godlike remembrance kind of thing, in an infinite way. And it becomes so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that feels really good. So good that I'm going to have to stop the recording and go for a pee. So what came to me in the bathroom, I always love that because I always get these things in a moment of fluidity. Well, crap. Now, what was it? Oh, so part of this holding space is, you know what? All of the 3D paradigms are falling apart. They're just collapsing right now. And it's important for us to be able to hold this space in this new way, in this different way, in more expanded and powerful way, because it's the energy of allowing it to collapse instead of trying to save it.
Right.
And in its place, instead of putting any energy toward stressing about it collapsing, trying to, fearing it collapsing, trying to find a way, being angry about it, trying to find a way to save it, it's simply saying, okay, well then let's just hold the space to allow the new earth to be born in the way that we have planned it. And I know we've talked about that before, but that feels really big, because even when I say it, it's like, oh, that just took my breath away, right? To say.
Well, because our ego wants to look at it as, okay, that's really saying that I'm saying goodbye to all the animals here, all the emotions here, all the things that I've worked to create here, all the stuff.
Well, it is.
And you can't get more personal than that.
That's true. But it's true, because all the stuff is very different to the individual, right?
Right.
As well as the collective. So but that is what I'm getting, is the way to allow, there's this big quantum leap that's right upon us now, to allow it to happen in a way that's not catastrophically destructive.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is. It is catastrophically destructive, except how we experience it is our choice.
Right. And if you're looking at one snapshot in time, how can you judge that?
Right.
Because it doesn't look at where you've been and where you're going.
So, yeah, and that's part of the, okay, what if we let the whole educational system just collapse? Well, that seems to be what our whole political system is gearing up to, allow everything to just collapse, so that we can say, okay, well now we just can't fall back into the comfort zone of, this is how it's always been, so it's easier to just go along with it.
Right.
So when it collapses, what do? Then you're stuck with, I have to figure out what to do on my own, for my own journey, on my own purpose.
Right.
Which the ego just like, what? That's so uncomfortable. So whatever it is to be able to do that, I guess that's what we're focusing on today. That's a big one.
Well, and it's almost a question of where we're at the place where each person, as part of acknowledging that they're creating their reality, is how do you want to write your story of how this evolution happens?
Yeah.
Do you want to write it trauma drama? Do you want to write it, oh my gosh, just let go and it's the easiest thing I've ever done?
And fun and crazy fun kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah. And oh my God, this is what I've been looking for thing. But talk about not rewriting history, but writing the future.
Well, writing the present in its completion, right? We talk about that even in Trinity with the creation statements. The creation statements are about creating now, right? And if we have that habit of just creating now.
And creating the energy that allows it to just be there.
Right? without a jillion other caveats and things that we bring forward from the last moment kind of thing.
Well, and last week in the class you talked about just seeing it done and trusting that whatever happens between here and there is really irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing it done. And I mean, that is so powerful in the moment right now, because everything just shifts.
Yeah.
And it's so fast, and it's almost like it
catches up to you.
yeah. It's like it just jolts you in place, and you're just like there.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole endpoint creation thing. Yep, of just like, right. And with more clarity than we had when it first came in, whenever that was last year. Or something.
I know. God. But, that's so yesterday.
I know. Or last whatever. Who knows? Yeah. So, and that does seem to be more important than ever. Just like keep your eye on the prize, set your goal, set what it is, and we're going to change them as we go. But it's like sort of just saying, okay, I see myself here. And it makes me think of, who's the X-Men character? Nightcrawler.
Oh.
I don't know if you know the X-Men at all. So Nightcrawler had the mutation where he could just move himself anywhere, but he has to see or know what's there where he's going. So like, as far as he could see, he could just pop there now. Right.
Right.
And then he could pop there, then he could pop further because of how much further he could see. And it's like, well, in the beginning, I think that's what we can do is just set these little goals of like, okay, this is where I am now. And I just move there and allow the creation to fall behind me. Because eventually what I was getting is, this is really an important step to get to just jumping to that next spot that you might not see.
Right. That you don't know what it looks like.
Yeah. But you know to be there.
Right. Or you know what it feels like, which is using a different perception versus what you can see.
Yeah.
And that takes more trust to I don't know what it looks like, but I know what it feels like. So I'm just going to aim for that feeling.
Yep.
Instead of aim for what this looks like.
Yep.
That feels like a nice warm.
I know, right? And it's so much bigger than even little things, but it's like we're taking these steps to align, like we talk about in class, and in the class, aligning thought, word, and deed to all support the same thing, right? So that means that all we speak, all we say, all we do are all aligned with that same thing. So why would we not practice that in everything we do?
Right.
Okay, I see it done. It's done. Finished, complete, and hold that feeling, right, to allow it to just, like the universe just catches up, fast forward to catch up to you kind of thing.
Right.
And to me, that's so much more fun.
Oh, and so much not labor intensive.
Right? So easy. Yeah. Yes. So all this that we talked about, that's what it feels like. This is huge. Like it is every week, right? In a different way.
Oh, I know. But this one feels particularly huge.
So like, so whatever all that is, to be able to hold that space in this new way, to trust to that level of, that endpoint creation, put that into practice. Because truly right now, what we talked about in Share Friday night is that the energy right now is that whole endpoint creation, like forcing us to get into that place of, either get lost in all the swirls of the crap around us that's getting more and more intense, right? Or it looks more and more intense. So either we allow ourselves to get pulled off track that way, or we simply create the endpoint and know that the road has already been created and we don't have to worry about all the details. And everything that comes up just becomes like a flick here and a flick there. And there's no judgment. There's no irritation. It's just like, okay, got to do this too. Okay, well, all right. Because it's just going to happen. This is done, or this has happened, has been created.
Right.
And it's realizing here. When we do that, I think it also helps to support us in that place energetically of being trusting without fear. Because when we say, okay, well, I'm going to like this is my endpoint creation, and you're not putting any details as to how you're going to get there, that is complete trust to say it just fell into place in this easy way, right? And no matter what that looks like, it's okay.
Right.
Because that also goes back to the questions we had at the Dallas retreat, having to do with like, well, saying that whatever's to be done so that I can exist in this vibration. Well, what if that means having a near-death experience or even dying or whatever? And I'm like, so what if?
Right. Do you want it or not?
And it puts us in this place of absolute, just simple creation that divorces the ego from managing it anymore.
Right.
And allows the ego, though, to take that new role in supporting that alignment of thought, word, and deed, to allow that all to come to play, because that becomes much more fun. Yeah. All right, let's do all that. That just feels really, I feel like I'm already going out there.
I know.
Like,
Right.
all right, let's just go and do that now, all of that. Oh, that made me so lightheaded.
I know.
I was like, it was just crazy. Wow. Oh, wow. That felt so
Seemed like about 2 seconds long.
I know. I feel like it, well, again, I can feel like I'd just be out there all day.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah.
That was incredible. I can't even tell you. I saw something in the beginning, but then I just totally, the closest I come to explaining what I was seeing was just this, it's almost like a new, I don't want to say padding, but it was like a new cushion underneath, like a new foundation that was, it was just completely different. And it felt so amazingly blissful. It was, I felt like I was in a bouncy house, but in a really like out in space kind of way. Like it's like bouncing. It's like in this new space. That felt so good.
I saw, it was almost like it was this tunnel, and it was like an energy tunnel. And it was like, I saw the end result and I was there, but I kept being tied to the ego that was back going, well, look out for that. And what about that? And, you know, all this uncertainty and all these things. And it was like, I just like scooped the ego up and I brought it to that end point and said, okay, rather than worry about all the what ifs, why don't you just look at all the things that are impeding the process from the end point instead of prior to the end point, and just get rid of those so then none of the what ifs matter. And it was just like my ego just went, oh my God, that's so much easier.
Yep.
And I was like, then let's just do that. And it was like everything just relaxed at that point. And it was just like, oh, well, then there's no need for this or this or this or this. It was like, exactly.
It frees up a whole lot of energy.
Really, really does.
Oh, yeah. It felt so yummy.
Yeah. That's a good word for it.
Yep. That's just yummy. It is yummy. Yummy is the perfect word for it.
It really is. And it's so peaceful.
And whole.
Yeah.
Ported. Cushy. Yeah, it's like you were saying before, it's like wrapping. It's like laying on this blanket that's like the softest, most like luxurious look.
It's the perfect temperature.
Yeah. Perfect softness.
Right. Yeah. Right. Perfect support.
Yeah.
Perfect everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, still as yawns come in. So y'all enjoy that this week. We'll see what comes up for the next one.
Right.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.